Lynn Banis lost her mom, her brother, her dog, and then her husband, one right after the other. She's here today to share how she found her new purpose inside her new reality. What changed for you with the start of your ideal retirement and then
Yeah, it was great in the beginning, and then my mother, who was I think about 100 at the time, there was a hurricane heading right toward her, and I told my brother go get her, which he did do, but she fell and broke her hip.
hmm,
So we felt like we couldn't let her go back, and she came to me, and I cared for her until she passed at 106.
oh my goodness.
And within 3 years, I lost my mom, my little brother, and my husband.
Wow. That's
So I've been through the grief process a few times.
yeah, I can imagine there. First I gotta say how great that you had your mom for
It
106
was
years.
it was
Uh,
wonderful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's good for her, good for you and the family. I just did a podcast just recently where the guest mentioned that more and more people are living to 100 or living healthier to 100.
Right.
I've got more negative comments on that podcast than any other one saying that's
Really?
ridiculous. That'll never happen to anyone. So thank you for some positive proof here that
Absolutely.
seemed like she was doing all right till towards the end, towards
She
that
fell.
that
She
health.
fell, and
Yep.
that is really hard to recover from when you're that age.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and nice for you that you were able to help her out, take care of her for a bit.
It was awesome. I mean, I had promised her many years ago that I wouldn't let her be alone, and that came true, and it was really a blessing for both of us.
I suppose. I'm curious because it seems like a lot of times when people retire, there's like a trigger for it. Was your mom's health, was that any thing that led you towards retiring?
Well, yes, in a way, my husband had retired before I did, and but when mom, that happened and she fell and broke her hip, that then we took her in, so that kind of changed our retirement.
Yeah, I suppose. And you mentioned that it was both your mom, your little brother, and your husband had died in such a brief period. I've heard this elsewhere, but then I heard you talking about this that there's this fog of grief or maybe brain
Brain
frog.
fog.
You might feel
Yeah,
like you
brain
got the
fog.
but I feel like you have the frog of a brain, but brain of a frog. But yeah, you got this brain fog. Tell me about that, maybe in general, but also how it really affected you.
Well, when it first when it first happens, and especially I'll talk about my husband because that was obviously the most intense
Hmm.
one. It was unexpected, and you just can't believe it. I mean, you go home from the hospital to an empty house,
Mm.
and your brain doesn't want to accept it. And as the days go by, I mean, at first you're just inundated with grief and people trying to bring casseroles. Please don't give anybody lasagna. I had enough for 3 years in my
Yeah, they
freezer.
bring you the family side, and you say, "Wait a second, I just lost my family."
Yeah. Anyway, as you try to get through, I think what happens is your brain tries to protect you from the trauma and the grief and the fear, and it just doesn't work very well. That's why I always tell my clients don't make any big decisions for at least a year until you
Hmm.
can think clearly and make decisions because you can't remember anything. You make mistakes. I wouldn't want anybody to make a major decision and then regret it afterwards. So that brain fog lasts months and months, and sometimes up to a year or so.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for people because you think someplace that you're going, and all of a sudden you end up someplace else, and it's just really bizarre. You feel like you're losing your mind sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, I did a little bit of research, and it's like I said, your brain physically changes. I think in that
Hmm.
situation, and
Hmm.
that's probably the reason why, like I said, your brain's trying to protect you
Yeah.
in a way, which also makes you a little bit of vulnerable. at the
A
same time.
lot vulnerable. Yeah.
How would you say that you got yourself out of that brain fog?
Well, I kind of I did not follow the advice I give to other people. It's like physician, heal thyself. And I did make a move because my house was so big, I just couldn't handle it.
Hmm.
And so I downsized. And, that kept me very, very busy getting a house ready to sell and then buying a new house and all that sort of thing. And by the time I get into my new house, it was September, and all of a sudden I got sick. And I
Mm.
stayed sick with one thing or another until after Christmas.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I finally thought, you know what? My body is telling me to stop.
Hmm.
So I did, and as I was thinking through the whole process, I mean, I just kind of had an epiphany that I said, because you think, what am I going to do? Who am I? And I thought, you know what? I don't care how old I am. I've got all this experience. I've been through this several times. I can help other people.
Hmm.
And so that's when my mind started to percolate along this, and I got started with a new venture.
Yeah, it seems like maybe finding a bit of purpose helped you move out of that brain fog.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. You lose your identity. You lose your what you considered your future as well as your past. And it's really important to get in touch with, what is your purpose and how can you live a life that really honors you. You can use your purpose, and also maybe you can leave a legacy for your family and other people of how, you managed to create something out of something negative.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the hope, is that you can do that, where you turn the negative into the positive, or
Hmm.
find the positive that might be hidden
Right.
in the negative. Although you mentioned the word identity, and I saw you say something once that I'm going to say just out front is probably controversial, related to identity. I saw you say that once you are widowed, that you should identify not as a widow but as single. Did I hear that correctly? That
You did
you are
hear
a
that,
single lady, Nahiro, single lady, right? Is the way to
well,
identify yourself.
let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Widows hate the word widow, for
Okay.
one thing,
Hmm.
and they really struggle with who they are and if they continue. I mean, I know it's controversial, but one thing I think about it is if you continue to say to yourself constantly, I'm a widow, I'm a widow, I'm a widow, and I don't want to be a widow, you're just setting the negative.
Hmm.
And if you think of, I am a single person, I have the opportunity to create my life
Hmm.
now. um, Sometimes that really is a positive for people to change their mindset about that situation.
Yeah, it's at least worth considering. Okay, this word versus the other. I just read. I'm going to find this article to link to it. Just in the Wall Street Journal recently, they mentioned that they probably used the word widow, but I think they actually mentioned single females, because it's, you might be 60 and you're divorced or widowed, or just
Yeah.
choosing to stay single at that time. That you get to about 60 or so, and a lot of women say, I don't want to get remarried. They're kind of
Mhm.
embracing their singlehood, and
Mhm.
you maybe think, oh, wait a second, I'm single. I have to become not single at some point in time, and there's a lot of power maybe grabbing onto that word and saying, this is just who I am at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. But it is the reality. You are single. Um, and so you need to create your life based on that. You can't continue to say, well, I'm going to keep date night or
Sure.
anything like that. So it's all part of accepting your reality.
Hmm. Yep. Excellent. Uh, with your reality, you mentioned though that you had three losses in a quick succession. I'm wondering, was it somehow that you kind of got out of the brain fog, and then that a new loss kind of brought you back into it? Was it kind of a succession of that? Did it maybe
Yeah.
did it get easier each time because you knew a bit, or maybe was it compounding and getting
No, it
worse
was
each
compounding.
time? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a lot. And, we also lost our dog of for 15 years
Mm,
in between, that
sure.
time. So for me, that's a huge loss too. That's a
Yeah.
part of the family for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was just one loss after another. And actually, a month before my husband died, Christmas Eve, we were over at my daughter's and her father-in-law died right
Oh
then and
wow.
there.
Mm,
So, we had that, and then I lost my husband exactly a month later.
mm-hmm.
So it was just firestorm.
Yeah, you've got it. Well, you've had that catalyst there where you were a business coach for 30 years. Now you started a different coaching program. Tell me how you kind of came to this place in life where you're at now, and what you're doing to help people, and maybe how you even kind of created your program, or your thought of how do you
Okay.
take people through.
Yeah, my program did come out of what I did for myself. And so I know it works. And I know that people who are widowed, male or female, don't trust somebody that hasn't been through it. You
Sure.
can't possibly understand because every single thing in your life changes. The way you sleep, the way you eat breakfast, the way you know, conduct your day. So, um, being a psychologist, I just thought through it. Well, you need to first learn to accept and evaluate where you are, and you need to think about what your values and beliefs are and get those aligned. And you need to stop the negative self talk and the self limiting beliefs. And you need to get your mindset open so that you can accept something new. And, those are a few of the things that really lead up to the actual creation of your new life. You need to find your purpose. What are you all about? What are you here for? What um, sets you on fire? What have you loved to do in your life and maybe even haven't had a chance to do it? So getting into those things and then looking at what is the environment that will support you in that. I think that's something that people really, really miss is, you know, what do I need to be? Who do I need to be around? Where do I need to be? What needs to be in that environment that will really support me and allow me to be who I want to be? And, you're creating your identity as you go through it. And then you get to the point where you can uh, get a clear vision, a really clear vision of where you want to be, and then we work on the pathway and process to get there in the implementation.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you're a psychologist, but you didn't mention, counseling, therapy type words. Tell me the difference, like this idea of maybe therapy versus coaching.
Okay, I'm not a clinically trained psychologist. I'm an organizational psychologist that studied human behavior. Um, and coaching takes you from where you are and moves you forward. We don't go back into the why things happen. And I personally believe that it's a very healthy process because you're not rethinking, remembering, and seeding that stuff deeper in your brain.
Hmm.
So if you can begin to think forward and learn to value what you had and really honor your past and your spouse as you move forward, you feel much better about it.
Yeah, I suppose I don't know if you hear the word moving on, but I think moving forward is a better term.
Yeah, I do too.
And that moving forward, I think, is what, like you said, helps you honor the past
Yeah.
versus dwelling on that, which is what happens, I think, all too often.
Yeah, so many people are afraid that they'll forget their spouse, which,
Hmm.
if you think about moving forward, then that part of your past is, it's real and it's important and you're not going to forget the person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of our listeners are 60, and they thankfully have yet to lose a spouse. Although if there's two of
Right.
you, at some point there's going to be one of you, which is why I like to
Yeah.
remind people that quite often, especially when you're planning for retirement, You're not planning for the retirement of the two of you. You're planning for the retirement of the two of you and the either of you. You're planning for today and tomorrow down the road. And of course, you're working with widows. So these are people that just had a loss or had a somewhat recently. So thinking of these 6-year-old couples, perhaps that thankfully haven't lost their spouse yet, are there any ways for them to lessen the blow ahead of time, or perhaps prepare for that future loss of their spouse, which will happen? Either
Yeah,
you're the one that's lost, or
absolutely.
you will be there.
It's hard to
Uh,
think about and it's hard to talk about.
yes.
But that's really one of the primary things, is to talk to your family about what your wishes are.
Okay.
And I happen to have a list of things that couples need to do before this happens to get things in place so it's not such a burden on their children, and get things organized. And I would love to make that available to your audience. They can just, we can get my email up there. They can contact me, and I'd be glad to send it to them.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes and also in the YouTube description. But can you just share that ahead of time right now?
My
Email. Yeah.
email,
Yeah.
L Banis, Banis, at Ameritech, Ameritech.net.
All right.
The
Lbanis and
net is important.
Ameritech.net. Yes, I believe that. Yep. Yep. You got it.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm happy to share that with people, because I was left unprepared,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister-in-law was too, and it was like couldn't even get into our husband's computers.
Sure.
So, that made it really tough to follow up on all the stuff. Who do I owe money to? Who do I pay money
Mm-hmm.
to? Where do I get this? Where do I get that? Yeah, it's tough.
Yep. I believe it. Well, how do you spend your time now? How's life looking lately?
It's looking great. I spend my my time working my business, which I really am enjoying, and because there's not the pressure like there is when you're in corporate,
Mm-hmm.
and I can do it, the way I want to do it. I have time for things I'd like to do. This summer, I spent a lot of time caring for my grandkids,
All right.
when they weren't in camps and stuff, and enjoyed that a lot. And I've got two golden doodles, and they're my joy
Nice.
now. And so I just am doing things that I want to do that make me happy, and I'm spending a lot of time building this business, which makes me happy.
Yeah. Glad to hear it. And we'll definitely make sure we get that ability for people to find that things that couples need to do ahead of time. And glad to see there's light at the end of the tunnel. And here you are, not saying I'll
Absolutely.
be the only one at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to bring some other folks along. That's great. Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love helping people. I always have, helping them have a life that works for them. But this is like such joy. The light bulb, the smiles are just amazing to
Yeah,
see. And people get they achieve so much more than they think they can, which is awesome.
I believe it. Good. Well, I've got one more question for you, Lynn. But before that,
Sure.
tell us if there's another way to get a hold of you besides the email, or is that the best way?
That's the best way right
Yep.
now. Yeah, I mean, they can phone me.
There you
Um,
go. Well, I'll put you, we connect through LinkedIn. So I'll put your LinkedIn profile and
sure.
your email in the
Yeah,
show notes and
that's
everything.
great.
Excellent.
Good.
Good. And of course, you can reach out to Lynn for ideas if you or someone else needs some guidance on Widows Rising Together was the name of your name of your company. I like that. Like
Yeah,
that.
and
That's
I do serve men too.
mhm.
I'm not it's not exclusive, and I've begun working with trauma patients, because much of what they go through with the depression and the loss of identities are very similar.
Yeah, I believe it. My goodness. Good. Well, Lynn, final question for you. Tell us something about yourself that few people know about. And remember, this podcast is rated clean.
Okay. Well, I am the daughter of an Olympic diver.
Okay.
My mother was first alternate to the 1932 Olympics, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Did you get to see her dive ever? Did she continue that on for
Yeah, she did.
later
She
on?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, she did. She was the only older person doing 1.5s and so forth at the
Oh my
country
goodness.
club.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. How
Yeah,
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thanks for coming on the show, sharing us a bit about yourself and how widows in particular, but also widowers and some other folks can rise up to get out of the brain fog and move on to a more clear purpose. It's
yeah.
needed, and appreciate you sharing that message.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. And thank you for listening to the Retirement Reveal podcast. We believe if you know more about your money, you'll feel better about your money and you will make better money decisions. Hi, I'm Jeremy Keil, owner of Keil Financial Partners. And if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients get more income, pay less in taxes, and avoid big retirement mistakes, make sure to go to keilfp.com. That's KEILFP.com.